Welcome back to Community Pulse 100.4 FM. We are now into the second half of our segment of matters pertaining to social justice. This is, of course, as we continue our journey in the direction of Allah through the best of women. And speaking to Sister Lila Helsinger, who's unpacking today's topic, beads between blisters. This is as we've traversed and as we've traveled with the Lady Fatimah for the past few weeks. And today, settling in with a couple in their home and looking at their spiritual growth, of course, amidst hardship, as we continue unpacking this title. And of course, this is what Sister Lila has done before the break.
Yeah, so inshallah, we're continuing. I'm now reflecting on a khutbah by Sulaiman, who tells a light-hearted, we're seeing the more human aspect of them now. So he relates the story of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would get up the one night and he tried to wake them, but they didn't get up. So Ali said, if Allah wanted to bring our souls back, he would have. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who I like to refer to as the king of the comeback, walked away saying humans are always so argumentative, as if to say people have an answer for everything, don't they? So like he recounts the story of the couple getting into disagreement and said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used a high level of emotional intelligence to diffuse the situation. For example, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to Aisha, I know when you're upset with me, because when you are upset with me, you swear by the Lord of Ibrahim, and then when you're pleased with me, you swear by the Lord of Muhammad. So I thought that was quite amusing, peace be upon all the prophets. One night he found Fatima alone, and again with the same discernment, he asked, where's your cousin? He didn't say where's your husband, he says where's your cousin? So he read the situation and could tell that there was some sort of friction, and then she said that they got into a disagreement, and he went to the masjid. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ found Ali in the corner sleeping with sand on his back, and then he woke him up and then wiped off the dirt and put his shirt back on, and then he says, sit up, O father of dirt, which became his favorite nickname. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told him to go back to his wife, peace be upon the couple. So according to Sulaiman, there was an incident after the conquest of Makkah. Polygamy had always been there to establish links between tribes and was done after the war. It became an Arab custom. Women went from being liabilities and burdens in the face of war to being assets in the reconciliation and peacekeeping of tribes through marital relations. The tribe of Abu Jahl, Banu Makhzum, and Banu Hashim, they were close, but then they had a lot of heat before Islam. Or before the conquest. It was suggested by the elders of the tribes that Ali ibn Talib marry Fatima bint Abu Jahl to bring the two tribes together. It hurt Fatima bint Muhammad to hear this, and it hurt the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to see her hurt. So he said, I won't make haram that is halal, but what hurts Fatima hurts me. It is not befitting that the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ marries the daughter of the enemy of Islam at the same time. So, because she saw Abu Jahl torture her father, and she was the one who cleaned his wounds. Sulaiman adds that he didn't say it was haram, but that she is of me, a part of me, and I'm her, and whoever hurts her hurts me, and so forth. So according to Sulaiman, Ali ibn Talib didn't pursue this at all, but just the suggestion alone was enough. It makes absolutely no sense that he would have proposed to this other woman, given his history from the very beginning. There are too many reasons why this makes no sense. So I'm not even going to touch that, because it's just going to, that'll distract me for a good 30 minutes. So I'm going to move on. Besides all of that, there is no question of their closeness or the depth of their love formulating over the next decade. Ali alayhi salam was a poet and offered her poetry. He saw her using the siwak, which is a type of toothbrush made from the stick of from the tree, and he said to the siwak while playing with the words, "O stick of the Iraq tree, how dare you? Weren't you afraid that I would see you? If you were a person to fight, I would kill you. No one has escaped me other than you." And it's a humorous way to express his love. So rewinding back in time, she was pregnant with the first child, Hassan, while she was serving at the Battle of Uhud, where Ali, along with a few other companions, fought tirelessly to defend the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the mountain that was set apart from the other mountains, as if to set apart those who defended the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in comparison to those who ran away. Fatima looked after the many injuries. She was like a war nurse, practical healer. She apparently also used to use the dirt, and again this theme keeps coming up, the dirt from the grave of Hamza, to make her tasbih. Another reminder that life isn't a success-only journey, and how the family had to have sabr in face of the horrific incident regarding their uncle on the battlefield. And sabr comes from the increase of iman. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had lost his own children, among other loved ones. So he was ecstatic that Fatimah Al Zahraa had children, according to Dr. Amina Darwish. Obviously, there is a difference of opinion as to whether she would have witnessed the death of her baby brother, but there is a consensus that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ lost his son, but also had to deal with the Meccans mocking the loss of his baby boy. Then later, her siblings and their children pass away as well, assuming that they were all biological. Even if they were adopted or step family or half family, that would still leave them bereft to any degree. So Hassan was born. Ali ibn Abu Talib wanted to name him Harb, which means war, but Muhammad ﷺ changed it to Hassan, which means goodness, and in many ways, and he looked like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ than Ali. We already mentioned the boys being born about a year apart from each other, and the stories about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in sujood and not coming up while waiting for them to get off while they're playing horsey. So Dr. Amina also reminds us that any masjid that doesn't have children should be worried. Little Hassan would jump on the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ during sujood and prolong his sujood, which to me, again, that in itself could be a 30-minute talk about the significance of that, because the sujood is about submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how children actually keep us in that submission. You understand? And then he basically makes the world wait. Because of ego, we want to accommodate the world. We don't want to stay in that submission that our children, in a sense, force us to be in that state of closeness. So he would hold him in the lap. Then in the next year, the next son was born. Abu Turab wanted to name him the next son, also war, but then again, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ named him Hussein, meaning little good. The last year we went into deeper detail regarding the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wanting to name the sons after the sons of Harun alayhi salam. Solidifying further the parallels between the families. In the hadith, the names are rooted in the word Shabr, but it was, I looked it up, unless it's a different, no, it's got to be similar. I found Shavir, which means to break, bring to birth, but also hurt, torn, crushed, and quenched. According to the biblical scriptures, Harun's sons were Nadab, which means generous, and then Abihu, and then later there was another two sons, Eleazar and Ithamar. We talked about this a lot last year. But again, you've got questions regarding hadith strength and biblical issues aside, and there's a theme running between the inherited priesthood of Harun and the history of Ahlul Bayt, with similarities between deaths, cover-ups, and then later disputes as to who should lead and take over, etc. So remember that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did warn his ummah that they would go down the same road as those before them, and perhaps he wasn't just speaking in generalizations. So however, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they were a great source of joy and a family precious to him. They said that Hassan had his upper body and that Hussein had similar legs. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would be giving a khutbah in the masjid, and you would see the two boys, and then he would stop to pull them on his lap and continue with the khutbah. And these two boys, much like their father, are now being raised in the thick of the message of Islam. So Aisha said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went off with a wide black striped cloak. In another lecture, this was a cloak from Yemen. Hassan ran up to him and he wrapped him in the cloak, and then he included Hussein, and then extended his cloak to Fatima and then Ali. Then to show love, he recited, Allah only intends to remove any impurity, O people of the household, holding all four of them as Ahlul Bayt under the cloak. And they were also confirmed as Ahlul Bayt in a verse in the Quran regarding the confrontation with the Christians, if anybody remembers that incident. So he used to say to Fatima, quote, call my sons for me, and he would squeeze them and smell their hair. He would often pray for them. So now we see the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a warm and caring grandfather figure, while two of the youngest daughters, Zainab and Kulthum, also entered the picture. Now these two were named after the two older sisters of Fatimah Az Zahraa, even if they weren't biological or adopted, or if they were half sisters. Either way, there was clearly some bond there, lots of love in this family, and all the lineage from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came through Fatima, the womb of Fatima, with the exception of the daughter of Zainab, married Ali alayhi salam after her passing. So Ibn Abbas reports from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, quote, love Allah for what he nourishes you, and with his blessing blesses you, and love me due to the love of Allah. Then love the people of the household for my love for them, and your love for me, and love those who love them. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was carrying Hassan, he said, Lord, you know I love him, so love him and love those who love him. He also said, those who love these two loves me, and whoever hates them hates me. Peace be upon the household. Okay, so Suleiman says that there was laughter in the house, and that the Prophet Muhammad SAW would inquire because he wanted to be in on it. He wanted like, hey, well, guys, what's so funny? And Ali used to write funny poems for Fatima besides the toothbrush. Between the two of them, there was a lot of humor and romance, and they were very rich in spirit. So as we know, the Prophet Muhammad SAW called Ali his brother, and Ayman asked him about it. He said that he chose him after the Hijrah because the two, you know, we spoke about them joking over the dates, but treats him like an adult and consults him otherwise. So their positions were well known to everyone. The Prophet Muhammad SAW would still visit them first, and then Fatimah Al Zahraa would still kiss his face and his hands, etc. And that was the custom. But then she started to cry the one day, and he asked why, and she said, you know, you're pale, your clothes are shabby, and you're not eating. And this is now, we're still dealing with Suleiman's khutbah, who says that this is the same girl who wiped the camel guts from his back while he was in sujood. He comforts her and tells her not to cry because, quote, Allah has sent your father on a mission which will reach every house on the face of the earth. This message has consumed me and consumed us. It will spread. It will be worth it. Suleiman continues, this is a woman who perfects her faith, a woman of prayer, supplication, and her own relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aisha bint Abu Bakr describes his fever. He was in and out of consciousness, burning from his fever. He soon couldn't walk. Fatima walked into the room. He usually would get up, because remember he spoke about how he'd always get up for his daughter, but this time he couldn't do that.
So beautiful.
Yeah, so Aisha said that he tried to rise for her, but he smiled and asserted himself more in that moment than the entirety of his passing to greet her, than the entire length of the last days. He showed strength, honored her, and with love called her over. So at this point, he has to like whisper in people's ear. She sat at his right, he whispered. She cried, then he said something in a calm whisper, then she laughed and embraced him. She left the room delighted. According to Dr. Amina, Aisha claimed that she never witnessed someone smiling through the pain like that. She gives a softer version of when Aisha asked Fatima what the Prophet Muhammad said to her, and she replied that she wasn't ready to share, but she would do so later. After his death, she told Aisha that he told her that she would be the next to go. Dr. Amina said that it was perhaps a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the other children didn't have to live through the worst moment of Islamic history, but Fatima had to and would have had enormous spiritual strength to get through it, and she knew her time was soon. Okay, so she says that she, like her mother, okay, but now there's contention here because she said that, like her mother, she passed away in Ramadan, which would have been bittersweet. But I'm going to address that towards the end, inshallah. So Fatimah Al Zahraa, you know, she was a piece of Khadija and a piece of Muhammad. She had lost most of her family, and although the Quran said twice that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would die, it still seemed inconceivable to the community because he was just so larger than life. But she grieved the loss of him, but also accepted his departure, knowing full well that she would join him soon. She was a young mother, and according to this Sunni khutbah, pregnant, but that's how much she loved him and wanted to be with him. So according to the Sunni sources, Fatimah Az Zahraa was busy at home until she heard Aisha scream. Just before then, he uttered his last words, I choose the companionship of the Most High. Fatimah said to affirm his declaration without hearing him herself, she says, O my dear father, how close you are to your Lord. O my dear father, we announced the highest garden in your abode. Ali was speechless despite being the eloquent one. He prepared his body, and Fatima was behind the men bearing him. She asked the Sahaba who took him into the ground, how did you bring yourselves to put, again, dirt on his face? How did you find the ability to do that? Then one of them said, I say by Allah, we had to deny our own hearts. In other words, they had to be robotic to bury him. She started to cry and then left. It is said that she didn't have the desire, okay, quoting, she didn't have the desire to live after his death, and the Sunni perspective is that some people die from heartbreak. Both claim that she became sick after a few days. He didn't spoil her, but gave her love and affection, and the impact of that was more important than materialism. So this is strictly from Suleiman. Fatima goes to her courtyard. She looks up smiling and called for Asma bint Humais. She says, I want to be buried at night so that people will not see my figure. She wanted a modest parting, for she had so much higher. She said, I don't want my figure exposed. Cover me in a white cloth. Asma told Salama, and gets her a cloth from Abyssinia. She was happy with it, then called Ali Abu Turab. They share moments, and she told him who to marry after she dies, the daughter of her sister Zainab, because she was a loving woman and would take care of her children. She then embraces her family and left with a nur and a smile on her face. So that's now according to Suleiman. So now Ali, the father of dust, has his own year of grief, because we ended off last week with the marriage between the son of Abu Talib and the daughter of Khadija, who both died within like 2-3 months in the year of grief. Now Ali, Abu Turab, now he has his own year of grief. He lost the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and now also his wife Bint Khadija. So when it rains it pours. He cried during her washing, and like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did when he buried Khadija, he had to go into the grave to place Fatimah's body, peace be upon them. He led the janazah of his wife, very similar to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had to do for Khadija, Fatimah. Abu Turab said, "Nothing exhausted me more than burying my 2 loved ones in that period of time." So from the Shia view, it was 3 months, not 6, and that would have been more intense, I would imagine. He had been through battles, wars, fitna, but now the loss of those 2 was the most taxing to his energy, peace be upon them. So much like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the father of dust also has the sense of rahmah to cry. After burying his wife, he recites a poem, and the YouTube actually has a feature, the version of the one that Suleiman recites in English, which is very touching and emotional and worth looking up, as it describes the beauty of this woman trapped and consumed by dirt and stones. But I also found this from another site, presumably Shia, which I felt fits very nicely into this discussion. It's a quote from Abu Turab: "My soul is the captive of my sighs. I wish it left my body with the sighs. There is nothing good in life after your death, and indeed I weep, fearing that my life becomes long." And when he shook the dust off his hands after burying his wife, a new wave of grief erupted inside him, and while tears streamed down his cheeks, he turned his face towards the grave of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and said, "Peace be upon you, O Rasulullah, from me and from your daughter who just ascended to your proximity and who joined you too soon. O Rasulullah, my patience in the absence of your true friendship has reduced and my endurance has thinned, except that your great separation and grave calamity is my only consolidation. For surely I was the one who laid you in your grave, and between my throat and my chest your soul left your body. Surely we are Allah's, and to him we shall return." This is from the site called almarif.org, and it also reflects the general sentiment found in some funerals around the world where people say ashes to ashes, dust to dust, echoing a universal theme. So while doing, I'm just going to skip ahead here, but I was doing some research about Quran, basically ancient Egypt in the Quran, and I was going through the Ben Institute, the verse ayat 83 regarding Sabr Jamilan, and how the discussion by Imam Ali Khan is how our patience is because of the iman. The more iman you have, the more patience you have. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would still spend on the friends of Khadija and would continue to praise her, followed by Ali ibn Abu Talib, praising the daughter of Khadija, leaving him with just love and pain that travels through the eternal system like the prayer beads between blistered hands, signifying the raw faith and hope of the believing man and believing woman. So Dr. Amina draws a parallel again to Khadija, and that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that the angel gave beautiful glad tidings that Fatimah salam will be the lead of the woman for the community. Hassan and Hussein will be the leaders of the youth in Jannah. She said that Hassan used his eloquence to unite the Ummah, and Hussein, much like Musa, had a bit of a stutter and would struggle to speak. Apparently, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ reassured him and said that this was the stutter that he inherited from his uncle Musa. Salam. So Dr. Amina from the Sunni camp added that no one spoke to power like her children. Hussein spoke truth to power. Many of the family of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ were killed because they said spiritual authority will never submit to the corruption of political authority. And Fatimah Al Zahraa was an educator. She was an educator and a stateswoman who raised educators and statespeople until the end of times. So these are people with so much iman that they were willing to give their lives for the message of Islam and that of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Hussein was killed, Zainab became the matriarch of the family, and they bring her into the court of the tyrant responsible for the series of events that had unfolded. Her calm as in her sabr due to knowing that everything that was happening was done under the merciful eye of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Her response was, I never saw anything from my Lord that wasn't beautiful. So being the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant that you carry the heaviest burden. They can't receive zakah. No one can say that this family benefited from their positions. And then Dr. Amin concludes that there is this perception that only the Shia love the family and the Sunni only love the companions, but it's a Muslim thing to love those that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam loves. And this is very much an honored family that he loved the most. So she ends off with the powerful throwback, because remember, when she was discussing the emotional jihad a couple of weeks back, we mentioned her discussion regarding the emotional jihad of carrying her father, and that now her legacy as a result is that she is the mother that carried the emotional labor of caring for the people of the Ummah. So to end off with this quote from Dr. Amina, women do emotional labor to love someone that society doesn't value is our act of resistance. Consistent kindness is how we build the community. This is our foundation in the hope of meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased with us and being able to say to him, we loved your people because of our love for you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that love and mercy in our hearts, make us more like them, and reconcile us to them in Jannat al-Firdaus. And to echo then Sulaiman, we are told that we will be with those that we love, so perhaps our love for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family may be a sign that we will be gathered with him in the Akhirah. Ameen, thumma ameen.